What's up, homies? What do we have here? I'm not even sure what to call it. I called the first one Big Iron because that's the first thing that came on my mind, but you know, and the blade comes from the Kissaki series that really never took. I could never really figure out. So here it is, boys. I've just been doing a little bit of nice and sharp. See, it's nice and sharp. That's the thing, a lot of things, they appear to be very, very resilient or functional because they're super, super sharp. But then as soon as they start to lose an edge, then the forces start to distribute more evenly throughout the knife. So we don't know yet how strong this design really is until, you know, we start to actually give it years. So, but there it is. I gotta say, one thing about this knife is that it does kind of dig into your hand. You're gonna need some meaty paws there. Of course, the solution. I think what I'm gonna do with these early carbon steel blades, I'm just gonna do the carbon steel handles. This is the stainless steel Higanogami style, but I'm gonna use up some of the steel, like the iron style handles. I've been playing around with this now, and I think like it doesn't matter if there's rust anywhere developing on it because it won't interfere with any of the functions. So the carbon steel ones are just going to be, the carbon steel ones are just going to be, I think, what I'm going to start off with, and then sort of raise funds to move into like a stainless steel ABL whatever kind of design. You know, the lock is obviously working very well. And the whole blade clears the chopping board, you see? There's nothing here stopping. That's the problem with the Espada, the ricasso comes out and you can't get a good, here you can, so, see? So I don't know, really good design I think, this one. This is curly birch, which is a pretty hard type of wood. It's tough. Those are some nice clean cuts. It's very difficult to whittle on this curly birch because it's like a burly kind of wood. It's full of knots. So, but this is exactly the kind of wood you need really high quality axes for, which this entire area is known for. The Bilnes axes, the world's most legendary axes. And you know, there's a good reason for that. The pine branches, the pine, the spruce, the trees, the birch, you know, whether you're going through the forest or you've cured the logs to turn into lumber, to make, you know, homes and stuff out of, it's, you know, a lot of it might be soft when it's fresh, but it's like extraordinarily hard when it's cured, and then vice versa. You got a kind of it's a pretty brutal on steel, the wood in Finland, and that's why, you know, the Espada XL, for me, even though it's perfect in many ways, it's just not thick enough of a blade. It's not made for these Finnish pine forests. So, you know, I've always kind of wanted something like this to replace the Espada XL because I need to be able to chop into branches. And the thing is, I took a great deal of appreciation for folding knives when I was taking the small little lamb out for a walk every day, because it's so much easier to just fold the knife. And if you have to hand it over to somebody, you can hand them over the folded knife. It's safe. I can throw it over to somebody, they can open it, you know, and then use it, and then on the spot close it, and it's safe. There's an act of when you're sheathing and unsheathing something. If you're on a rocky hillside, it's kind of risky. Granted, you know, you got to be careful how you fold a folding knife, because you could cut your fingers off in this sort of same manner if you slip. But I noticed that actually there's kind of, you know, not actually having a sheath to worry about, not having to point the tip around trying to sheath the fixed blade. Because when you're sheathing and unsheathing, or when you're sheathing a fixed blade, you know, and you're in the woods, and say you're on a real intense inclination that's covered in wet mud and rocks, and there's just this nasty ass fucking branches and shit in your way that's kind of in an awkward position. You know, say you cut your way through. When you're sheathing the knife, you are pointing the blade towards you. So, you know, from my perspective, I think the folding knives are just a little bit more modern, I guess you could say. The thing for me that's odd too, though, is that like anybody at any point in time in history could have made something like this. I didn't use anything extraordinary, or so, you know, I'm not using laser technology here, or CNCs, or mills. Okay, yeah, drill press, but... So, very impressed so far with the performance of this knife. It's chopping. So, and the nice thing is, yeah, it just chops right to the board, you know? That edge... goes right up against that board. So, I don't know what to tell you, man. That's a pretty effective, powerful, decent folding knife. It's not too big. It's quite decent package. Fits in your hand. If you got, I don't know, size 9 plus, 9 and above hands, this is like a pretty good fit in your hand, like when it's closed. Fits in a pocket inside the waistband. You can carve with it very easily. Ow. You know. Yeah, it doesn't open really by itself. You have to. You are. It is a friction folder, right? You can't just swing it open, but it kind of needs that because it's a very large knife, so, you know, you don't really want to mess around. I just love chopping with it. You got a little mini hatchet here in your pocket, you know. Skinning with this looks ideal. Some crafting work that I do. This will help with a lot of the crafting work, you know. It's not too long of a blade, you know, but it's got all that oomph. It's right under 500 grams, and all the weight is out here, so, you know, it's if you want it to be a hatchet, if you want to chop with it, you can. If you want to use it like a regular blade, well, that's your balance point. It feels perfect right there, weightless. So, I don't know. So, whoa, let's not try and catch falling knives here. Luckily I got my steel tip boots on. Last time I dropped a knife on my foot, I had to go to the hospital, so... I don't know, I'm in love with this knife. I think it's fucking cool. It's extremely versatile. You know, I've been thinking for a long time, you know, what's the solution to a knife that you can use for everything? What's your everything knife? And, you know, this is pretty close now because, you know, abandoning the sheath actually does give you an enormous amount of space. I can just grab this and go, stick it in my pocket, you know. It's it works really, really well. So now the issue is, of course, how do I go forward with this design? Let's see how much time. 10 minutes. I think the trick is they're gonna be custom pieces of work. They're not gonna be cheap, and I'm gonna use that money to try and, you know, see if it's possible to do a manufactured version. Of course, the one sort of functional alternative is always to contact the Chinese boys, because they can do anything, they'll do anything, and they have a good price on everything, and so who cares, right? Chinese made, high quality, maybe M390 blade or whatever, and just to get kind of like an affordable production version going. Because I've said this before many times with my work, you know, when I go out and forge and do all this creative stuff, it's really like a infinite prototyping process. I'm constantly experimenting with all these new designs, and the idea is that I come up with prototypes that are functional market prototypes, functional design prototypes that can be used in the industry to make a product out of. And that's the idea with this. This is a fully functional prototype. Fully functional prototype. Now, how would you go about making this? Well, you would need a system where you can feed a stainless steel tube, cuts it down the middle, smushes it flat around some kind of bar, bends it at a 90-degree angle to get that curvature, stamps it so you get all the holes and all the fucking things out. Then you throw it in some kind of tumbler, get it polished, then you take it out and you rivet everything together, and then you shove your spring out the back there and you hammer it in, and it should click into place. So I think ultimately when it comes down to it, you might actually have like a very, very efficient type of product or manufacturing style here using the sheet metal work. But yeah, I'm really pleased with this. I don't know what to say. The next one's going to be even cooler, tougher. I'm going to make some of these friction folder ones, of course, the ones that I have over there. But I think with the resources that I have available, I'm going to just make the next 2 friction folders, have them available, and then just keep what I have, the rest of the resources to focus on this folder. This is the very, very, very first folding knife I've ever made, a real one, that has a locking mechanism. It's chopping through, you know, hardwood. It's locking very nicely. It's working flawlessly. So it's a very, very good start, this, to a folding knife like career, I think. So, boom. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I think that was pretty cool, and I'll catch y'all later.